Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into some really surprising and honestly pretty counterintuitive truths about money. This all comes from Morgan Housel's brilliant book, The Psychology of Money. Okay, let's start with a number. $8 million. Now, when you hear that, what kind of person comes to mind? A high-flying Wall Street trader? Maybe a tech CEO? Well, the answer is probably not what you're thinking. This was the life savings of a guy named Ronald Read. And he wasn't some stock market wizard. He was a janitor and a gas station attendant his whole life. This wasn't a lottery win, and he didn't inherit a dime. So you have to ask, how on earth is that possible? Ronald Read's story gets right to the heart of the book's big secret. When it comes to money, what you know isn't nearly as important as how you act. And his quote from Morgan Housel just nails it. He calls it a soft skill. It's about your own psychology, not about fancy spreadsheets. To really get what this means, we're going to explore 5 core principles from the book that explain it all. So let's get into the first one. So our first principle is all about understanding that in the investing world, there's really no such thing as a free lunch. You know, those high returns you want, they don't just appear out of nowhere. They come with a cost. Think of it this way. If you want a really nice watch, you have to pay the price for it, right? If you try to steal it, you're going to face the consequences. The stock market is exactly the same. The price you pay for great long-term returns is volatility. It's the fear, the downturns, the uncertainty you have to live through. If you try to get the returns without paying that price by, say, panic selling when things get scary, well, that's like trying to steal the watch, and you almost always get caught. And this chart, it just shows you how real that price is. Even with a super simple, solid investment like an S&P 500 index fund, over a 40-year stretch, you would have spent a total of 13 years with your portfolio down at least 20% from its peak. That's not a bug. That's the fee. It's the normal expected price of admission for long-term growth. Okay, so let's say you've accepted that price. What's the next big psychological hurdle? That brings us to principle number 2, which tackles one of the biggest wealth destroyers out there, the moving goalpost of social comparison. Capitalism is an amazing engine for generating wealth, but it's also incredible at generating envy. The problem is, no matter how well you're doing, there's always someone doing better. The doctor in the top 1% feels pretty good, until they meet a CEO. That CEO feels rich until they're on a yacht with Michael Jordan. And even Michael Jordan's wealth is just a rounding error next to someone like Jeff Bezos. And that's the dangerous cycle of comparison, right? It can make you feel like you never have enough. And that feeling pushes people to take really foolish risks, trading things they absolutely have and need, like their savings or the reputation, for something they don't really need at all, like a slightly bigger boat than their friend. Okay, our third principle. This one requires a big dose of empathy. It's the idea that your personal experiences with money literally shape how you see the financial world. And something that looks completely crazy to you might make perfect sense to someone else. For example, check this out. It's a statistic that, on the surface, just seems totally irrational. The lowest income households, the same people who often can't cover a small emergency, spend way more on lottery tickets than the richest groups. Why would they do that? But let's just try to see it from their perspective for a second. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, and there's no obvious way to save your way to a comfortable life, a lottery ticket isn't really a financial plan. It's you buying a dream. It's the only way you feel you can get access to the kind of life-changing money that other people take for granted. And when you look at it that way, it doesn't seem so crazy anymore. So, seeing as everyone's reality is different and the future is basically impossible to predict, our fourth principle just makes a ton of sense. You have to have a financial plan that can survive surprises. It's not about predicting the future, it's about preparing for it. You know, history isn't some smooth, predictable line. It's shaped by these huge, unforeseeable events, often called black swans. Think about things like world wars, the 2008 financial crisis, or even a global pandemic. By their very definition, you can't see them coming, but you can be absolutely sure that they will come. And this is exactly why trying to outsmart these events by jumping in and out of the market is just a losing game. I mean, look at this data. If you were invested for 2 decades, but you missed just the 4 best days in the market, your total return would have been cut almost in half. The most powerful tool you have is endurance, not some crystal ball. And that brings us to our 5th and final principle. And this one explains why we're so drawn to predicting doom and gloom all the time. our brain's natural pessimism bias. I mean, think about it. When someone gets on TV and warns you about an impending market crash, they sound serious, smart, like they're letting you in on a secret. But when someone talks about slow, steady progress over many decades, they often just sound like a naive salesperson, right? There's a deep-seated reason for that. It's all about evolution. As the Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman explains it, our brains are hardwired for survival. Our ancient ancestors who treated a potential threat, like a rustle in the bushes, as more urgent than an opportunity, like some fruit on a tree, were the ones who lived long enough to pass on their genes. Pessimism feels smarter because it taps right into those ancient survival instincts. So, to wrap this all up, mastering this soft skill of money isn't about knowing complex formulas. It's about your behavior. It's about accepting market swings as the price you pay. It's about knowing what enough means for you, so you can get off that ladder of envy. It's about building a plan for your own unique reality, preparing for the unexpected, and being aware that your brain is naturally attracted to bad news. In the end, the real takeaway here is that building wealth has way less to do with the size of your brain and way more to do with the strength of your stomach and how well you can just manage your own behavior. And that leaves us with a final question for you to think about. As you look at this playbook, which one of these principles is the biggest challenge for you?